since we're reaching the year 2026, it's appropriate to call this episode the 2026 edition of the Ultimate Smartphone Buying Guide. As of writing this script, I have accumulated a lot of experience since 2022 with the introduction that's GrapheneOS on the Google Pixel 3, and later that same year Ubuntu Touch on the Google Nexus 5, and then graduating to all kinds of other mobile operating systems such as PostmarketOS and the controversial Sailfish OS, and everything else in between. Open source smartphones are such a niche thing since it pretty much turns your smartphone, which was locked down by iOS or Android ecosystems by the way, into a fully fledged computer, with some including the ability to connect to an external monitor and targeting OSs being GNU Linux. The same exact suite of software and apps you'll find on desktop Linux. So in this season finale of Hazel Reviews, we're going to be looking at the Open Source Smartphone Buying Guide 2026 edition. So get your pen and notepad, cause you're going to need it when you're shopping for a new open source smartphone. One of the first steps you can change on most smartphones is the software, or at least the OS itself. Many smartphones have the ability to unlock the bootloader by simply entering a few Android Debug Bridge or ADB commands. The methods of unlocking the bootloader vary by device, and some won't allow you to unlock it after all. For example, most Google Pixel devices allow you to unlock the bootloader without much hassle, as long as that is a factory unlocked model, meaning it comes straight from the factory without carrier restrictions and the ability to unlock the bootloader at ease. You can find these brand new from retailers like Best Buy, Amazon, and the Google Store. However, if you're looking for a used model to save money, be careful what you're looking for. Even if it says unlocked, you'll probably be getting one of those previously from a carrier. Always look for the factory unlocked models. Some sellers also show whether the bootloader can be unlocked. If a listing doesn't contain any important information, or the seller has no technical know-how, it is best to look for another model. OnePlus devices are a bit easier because the first 7 models are fully unlocked from the factory, but anything newer starting with the OnePlus 6T, you will need to avoid the carrier-locked versions of course. Though some carriers allow you to unlock the bootloader with a few extra steps after the device is fully paid and its SIM unlocked. Xiaomi devices are notorious for making you wait for a whole week to get the bootloader to unlock, and the process of getting it to work is a hassle, such as signing into an account. Creating a new account will make you wait for a whole month to gain access to essential features like unlocking the bootloader, and one wrong step will result in resetting the timer. All while there's a limit on how many devices you can do such thing per year. Other models can be unlocked with their own respective website, such as the Sony Developer World portal, Motorola's Unlock Bootloader program, Fairphone with its respective website, and even HTC with its website still up years after they stopped selling smartphones in the US. I mean, you could shove a modern version of Android on an HTC One M8 if you like. And speaking of Android, we're going to be looking at a few notable Android distributions, or custom ROMs as it's called, available right now. LineageOS is the most popular custom ROM in the world. It was shortly created after the discontinuation of CyanogenMod in 2016. It supports over 250 different devices, and some at the moment are supported with the latest version 23.0 based on Android 16. The operating system out of the box is super clean and polished with only the most essential apps, leaving the user to add whatever their heart desires. Some components need to be installed by rebooting your device into recovery mode. Rooting it can give you greater control over your device. The base Android operating system, like LineageOS, comes without Google software like the Play Store, and more importantly, the Play services. Without them, it makes it impossible to get features like push notifications, and some apps just won't work without it. The solution is to use microG. It replaces the services with the ability to receive push notifications via cloud messaging. It's even a smaller footprint to your resources, so that your device may run better depending on what you have. There are two app stores you can use that aren't from Google services. Aurora Store allows you to download apps without the need for an account, though some apps are still locked behind a paywall, and F-Droid is where FOSS apps are, or free and open source software. Some of them are even useful, like VLC and offline note-taking apps, as well as open source alternatives to big tech like Organic Maps, Thunderbird, and a few suite of Fossify apps. Yes, I'm aware that Google is blocking sideloading apps outside the Play Store. These new sideloading restrictions, however, won't directly block you from sideloading APKs on a device running a custom ROM like LineageOS, but they might affect what happens if you try to use Google Apps or Play services on top of that ROM. Google's new sideloading restrictions do not apply with a device running LineageOS without such services or with something like microG, simply because no developer verification check occurs. The service itself doesn't exist in that particular environment. Developed by Murena, /EOS is a privacy-respecting custom ROM based on LineageOS, compatible with most devices founded in LineageOS. /EOS has also received academic recognition from researchers at the University of Edinburgh and Trinity College of Dublin. The out-of-box look resembles a lot like Apple's iOS, down to the app arrangement system. But after using an iPhone with the latest 26.1 build, I'd say that the launcher made for /EOS is more constrained than ever before. /EOS also comes with its own suite of apps and online services, including a search engine powered by Quant+, an email platform, cloud storage, and other online tools, creating a unique privacy-enhanced environment, though it pretty much defeats the purpose of an open-source device, which is what we're looking for in the first place. Unlike LineageOS, /EOS comes with an app store pre-installed out of the box called App Lounge. Applications available include open-source apps that you can get from F-Droid, as well as free Android apps that you usually find in the Play Store. And not only /EOS informs you about trackers found in apps, but you will be able to choose whether you accept or not to stay tracked in the advanced privacy widget. Developed by Iode Technologies, it is pretty much the same core principle as /EOS, a privacy-respecting custom ROM based on LineageOS. But unlike /EOS, IodeOS does not come with online services, which is a good idea to not keep all eggs in one basket, by the way, such as using multiple services for different needs. What it does come, however, are a good selection of services and apps, with of course microG included. But it does come with parental controls baked in, which makes it a fantastic option for parents who has children and are not willing to turn them to monsters with sticky peanut butter fingers playing Roblox and watching Skibbity Toilet all day. I actually like the look of IodeOS. It's basically the same launcher used in LineageOS, which is more functional than the launcher provided in /EOS, though everybody has their own preference when it comes to their look and feel of their own mobile experience. Though IodeOS has fewer devices to support, some devices like the Brax 3 phone comes with IodeOS pre-installed, and it's a more thoughtful alternative than /EOS or even LineageOS. Some of you might be surprised that GrapheneOS is being mentioned right now, because it's truly something unique. Originally developed in 2014 under the name CopperheadOS, and after a dispute between the founders of Copperhead, the open source portion of the project was rebranded and relaunched as GrapheneOS, a fully community-driven and maintained by the nonprofit by Daniel McKay. It's a privacy and security-focused spin of Android with really cool features like contact and storage scopes and sandbox Google Play services, as well as other features like Duress Pin, which self-destructs any data stored on the device, and network permissions in every app, schedule reboot, setting up the phone to restart periodically, and support for Android Auto when Sandbox Google Play services is installed. The out-of-box look is basically as stock as you can get with an AOSP device. It only comes with the most essential system apps and nothing gets into your way. A Sandbox Google Play environment gives you full control of the functions as well as what you can enable or disable, all the way down to the networking and sensors that the stock OS won't let you control in the first place. It is being installed as any other app instead of being a OS system level or service, preventing the services from getting into sensitive information and in some cases improve battery life if it's not being used 24/7. GrapheneOS, for now, only works with Google Pixel devices due to the advanced security features like the Titan M series of security chips that only the Pixels have, long-term security updates, and features that meet the project's specific requirements such as memory tagging extension, starting with the Google's Tensor G3 and later. But since Google recently took down the Pixel device tree from the AOSP source code, that made fast or even day one updates possible, slowed down development for newer Pixel devices. GrapheneOS might eventually drop Google Pixel exclusivity with Snapdragon powered devices coming. A team member stated, "A team behind GrapheneOS confirmed plans to start offering devices other than Google Pixel smartphones at a similar price. These Snapdragon power devices are coming from a major OEM that remains unnamed in the post, though it was last updated a while back, and it should be taken with the finest grain of salt." For a very long time, the best hardware to run mobile Linux is the PinePhone, the PinePhone Pro, and the Purism Librem 5. These devices, while impressive on paper, their hardware is extremely outdated, even when it was released in 2020, 2021, and 2019 respectively. I even attempted to daily drive a PinePhone, but the execution was a mixed bag. While I did gain the freedom of being able to run any Linux application on a pocketable device, it was facing so many issues in the process. I forgot to mention that the modem gets really hot when using a SIM card that's inserted to make phone calls or to use cellular data. The PinePhone Pro, with its abysmal sales throughout its lifespan, never saw the day of light, and it was discontinued in 2025. There is no way to buy one brand new anymore unless if you're willing to buy all of the spare parts from the official website and build it yourself. Unless if you have the money to get a fully open source phone, the Librem 5 is prohibitively expensive, and it's not worth the asking price of $799 US. For the majority of customers, the specs are not worth it, despite being a fully open source smartphone. Fortunately, we do now have incredible and affordable options, as well as many flavors of mobile Linux distributions to choose from. So here are the two biggest mobile Linux distros. Originally released by Canonical in 2013, and then adopted by the UbiPorts team as a community project later on, sets to be one of the most popular mobile Linux distributions, with excellent support for a handful of devices, and some can be used as a daily driver. Ubuntu Touch does not feature any existing desktop environment, but rather something called Lumiri, formerly Unity 8 before the Uni project was axed in 2017. It was the desktop environment that didn't happen, with a more touch-friendly interface. The out-of-box look resembles a lot like modern desktop Ubuntu, with the synonymous dock on the left side, and the Suru theme which predates the Yaru theme we all know about. However, because of how the UI was left behind a long time ago by Canonical and how it's being maintained by only receiving LTS version updates, the overall user experience is extremely dated, with the control panel being one row and not aligned as tiles like in modern experiences. This is especially crystal clear when you put it alongside something like Fosh or GNOME Mobile. The Open Store comes with mostly web apps, basically shortcuts pre-done by other people, and actual apps specifically made for Ubuntu Touch. There's no real way of getting apps from other sources like Flatpak, and running any app from the package manager is impossible without Libertine. But getting apps to launch is also impossible, all because the root file system is read-only, just like atomic Linux distributions like Fedora Silverblue, for example. For devices fully compatible with Ubuntu Touch, can make phone calls and send text messages like any smartphone can. But some can also run the RayDroid container needed to run Android apps on Ubuntu Touch and many other mobile Linux distributions. If you're looking for an alternative to run Android and want to break free from Google entirely, start from Ubuntu Touch. It's a solid choice for a minimal mobile experience. Originally released in 2017, PostmarketOS is one of the best Linux distributions to put on your phone. It's being actively developed and maintained, and it supports all kinds of devices from smartphones to tablets to laptops and single-board computers. Being based on Alpine Linux, it creates a foundation for a true Linux distribution, and all while not being top-heavy, especially since it's being made for mobile devices. The best devices to run PostmarketOS right now is the OnePlus 6, the 6T, the Google Pixel 3a, to some extent the Moto G4 Play and the Moto G5 Plus, and of course the PinePhone Pro, and the Librem 5. There are 3 different ways to install PostmarketOS to your smartphone, either through a graphical installer, flashing specific image files to your phone, or using a command line tool called PM Bootstrap. It allows you to create an image towards your needs, from choosing a desktop environment to choosing which packages to pre-install, such as a web browser or another package manager like Flatpak. The most notable desktop environments are Fosh, a portmanteau of phone and shell. It's a mobile GUI that uses GTK libraries such as Adwaita developed by Purism. Fosh is one of the most polished mobile user experience, and it's a good choice for smartphones, of course. GNOME Mobile is a revision of the existing GNOME desktop made for smaller screens, which features refined touch gestures and apps using libadwaita that fits on a smartphone screen. Though it's top-heavy, as it's again basically the same GNOME desktop environment but tweaked for smaller screens. But if you have the hardware capable to run GNOME Mobile, then it's actually a pretty solid choice. Otherwise, stick with Fosh. Same thing with Plasma Mobile. It's based on the KDE Plasma desktop environment made specifically for, of course, smartphones, but in KDE form. SXMO, or SimpleX Mobile, is a window manager with controls made for the use of touchscreens. It can be a good choice as window managers are always significantly lighter than fully-fledged desktop environments, though it can be a pretty steep learning curve for some. Originally released in 2024 alongside the Fury FLX1 smartphone, it's a fork of Droidian, a Debian-based Linux distribution that aims towards convergence, compatibility with Android and Linux apps, and provide a seamless experience overall, all while it was reasonably priced at $550 US. The reason it was able to run Linux with almost no issue on hardware like this was made possible by the Halium project. Its goal was to unify hardware abstraction layer for projects which run GNU Linux on mobile devices with pre-installed Android. Halium contains Android services that are required to talk with hardware, making it easier to port Linux on. though it is not a true Linux distribution as it still relies on the Android kernel, which heavily depend on the age of the device, since the kernel comes with is woefully outdated compared with the current version of the Linux kernel. While MechanicsOS isn't officially released yet, I have to put this on the list. The Mecha Comet is something I'm genuinely excited for since it was first announced in CES of 2025, featuring a modular faceplate with some ideas like a keyboard, a gamepad, or a GPIO connector. The Comet is usually being called a handheld Linux computer, but it can also be a phone by adding a cellular modem card into the Comet's M.2 PCIe 3.0 slot. And of course, since MechanicsOS is based on Debian, you can install virtually any Linux application as long as it has a native ARM64 version. Originally released in 2013 by Yola, Sailfish OS aims to be a European alternative to the iOS and Android offerings, and while it's not really marketed as a Linux distribution, people all around the world universally agreed that Sailfish OS is yet another mobile Linux distro. Though they do use the Linux kernel, that's where it all ends. Instead of using the GNU core utilities, it uses something called BusyBox, which is also being used in PostmarketOS. The actual UI is proprietary, and most of the core features like Android app compatibility is locked behind a paywall. Sailfish OS is currently compatible with the Yola C2 and several Sony Xperia devices. Many of these Linux distributions are currently based on existing distros. Most notable are Arch Linux, Fedora, Gentoo, Kali Linux also known as NetHunter Pro, Manjaro, Debian also known as Mobian, NixOS, OpenMandriva, OpenSUSE, and Rhino Linux. Though it depends on the distro to support your device, like the OnePlus 6 and 6T being compatible with OSs like Fedora, Kali's NetHunter Pro, PostmarketOS, and Mobian. Basically, there's a flavor for everyone who really wants to go full mobile Linux. Buying a smartphone that allows you to install said open source operating systems, or simply getting an open source smartphone can sound tricky, but we now know the basics of obtaining such hardware and where you're mostly gonna find them on. We also know what kind of OSs are there that cater towards your needs, from the compatibility and reliability of Android open source project to the customization, convergence, and freedom of mobile Linux distributions. While it may not be the perfect source, it can probably help guide you towards your first or perhaps next step into getting an open source smartphone, and even shine a light on these amazing projects made possible by the community. That's all for this episode of Hazel Reviews. Until then, we'll see you in the next one.